Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to Monday Mentor. I'm Jen Whitmer, your host, and I help teams and leaders solve conflict, cultivate communication, and create empowered teams of self-leaders who are people who can help you do great work in the world. And I love coming on Mondays to give you some leadership tips, things that will help you in your leadership, to help your team and help you feel like you're effective and doing the things that you need to do. And today, I'm really excited. So Kareen Walsh is a little bit of a minor celebrity to me. She is a podcaster. She is a consultant. She's a coach. She has just amazing wisdom in so many areas. I have learned so much from listening to her podcast, listening to her husband talk about how great she is, which is always really fun. And I can't wait for you to meet her and share her wisdom about work-life integration. So let's welcome Kareen.
Welcome. Hi, Jen. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so glad that you are here today. And I'm really, really excited for this conversation. I think it's incredibly important to leaders in the world. And so I am thrilled about this. So before we start, I always like to welcome the people in the comments. So let us know if you are here in the comments. Tell us you're watching live. If you are watching the replay, we will come back and talk to you in the comments as well. And if you've got questions, drop them in. So before I ask Kareen my question for you who are watching are, what do you think work-life balance is? And what do you think work-life integration is? I know it's kind of complicated. It's not the easy softball question, but I kind of want to see what you think. So Kareen, as we start, I would love for you to tell us a little bit of your story. How did you arrive here in this place? What was the journey to get to the work that you do now?
Well, so how I like to describe it now, because, everything is in hindsight when we tell our story, is that I am a multi-dimensional, multi-dynamic person. And I found that if I just built my journey off one version of me, like one version, then I am not actually standing in all of who I am. So to say that I'm an investor, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a C-suite leader, advisor, I have a coaching platform, I have books that I've written, like all the things that I've actually accomplished are all parts of that journey of flexing all sides of me. So when it comes to the reason why we're talking today and this role that I play in life on advising entrepreneurs and C-suite leaders on how to grow and scale their business, my approach comes from within. So, and it's really because the journey when I was an executive in other people's companies and I helped build, grow, and scale, I like to say that the way I evolve businesses is by humanizing it. It's about getting to the core of who we are as people and bringing our best foot forward to accomplish something together. I mean, that's all business is, really. So yeah, the journey's been long and beautiful. It's almost, I think, 20 years in my work life, which is wild. And I've had my company now this will be my 13th year, which, a lot of entrepreneurs don't last that long.
I'm pretty sure the statistic is less than 3 years, if I remember right. Yeah.
So it's pretty wild. It started as self-employment when I first initiated, was me just selling my own expertise for that financial exchange. And then I scaled it past myself, I would say 5-6 years into it, realizing there's a model here that I do that I can help others find great work. And so my consulting side of my business allows me to source amazing people into amazing projects and have a really nice aligned expertise along the way. So a lot of things, but go ahead and ask me whatever question you'd like. I'm here to help serve.
What I appreciate about you, having watched you over the last probably 4-ish years, I think I started to know you, I have really appreciated how aligned you are. You are not somebody who are like, hey, this is the thing you should do to make your company grow or to make yourself grow, all of that. You really walk the talk that you share with other people. And in fact, I was doing some scheduling last week and I was about to offer somebody a meeting before 9 a.m. And I don't like to have meetings before 9 a.m. for lots of reasons in my world. That works for me. And I remember something you said on a podcast. It's not a direct quote, but I was like, wait, I don't have to do that. Right. I can just offer the times that I want. I still fall into that trap really easily. And so I think that's one of the things that is so powerful about you, because the story I remember was the way you did that. And I was like, wait, I can do that. And that's fine. So I just appreciate that about who you are, and integrity and authenticity is so amazing.
Thank you.
So glad that you're here, Heather. Welcome. And so as we start, we're in this now. As we start, I would love for you to talk a little bit about the difference between work-life balance and work-life integration. How are these things different? Give us some terms.
So I don't know if you're aware, but like work-life balance was terminology created to market a more balanced culture in the workplace. So we're all about, I think you remember this wave of like companies coming out and say, we're all about work-life balance. We're going to give unlimited vacation time. And, like it was all this props of like what this concept of work-life balance was. And if you think about old structure of businesses, it was you had to clock in, you had to clock out. Like you were an employee that earned your money based on clocking in and clocking out. That was pre-technology. When you're carrying around a smartphone, and all of us do, it put everything out of whack. There's no more time boxing of like, I just worked these hours and I am with my family these hours, or I have my own life outside of work. So as a society, and the way that we have actually now been abled and enabled to show up in all areas of our life, this phone, these computers, this connection shifted how we actually have to figure out what integrating ourselves are in all that we do. So just to make it a little bit more clear, I see the word balance as old school scales, right? The teeter-totter. And in order to actually create those things to balance, you have trade-offs. Yeah, you have to take something off one side or add something onto the other, like for it to balance out. But that's not reality. Yeah. Like reality is there is going to always be a trade-off when you're focused and trying to accomplish one of the many things in all areas of your life. But how you integrate into it is all about the framework you want to step into daily. So this example you talked about, where it's like, I could have had a 9 a.m. meeting with one of my clients, but that would have set me off the whole day because I didn't do my morning rituals that actually fuel me to serve the rest of the day, which is probably the podcast episode you were listening to, because I always talk about how your discipline in showing up in it all is how you live an integrated life. And the pandemic sent us all home, where we used to have this separation of,
we had really clear
lines. I commute
even though we took our stuff with us, it was still a physical move. And then all of a sudden I'm sleeping where I work, where I live, where I cook, all of it.
Right. And so that ability to actually decipher the blurred lines that now were created. Not only did the phone do that to us, right, when that was introduced, it's also what we had to overcome coming home to be like, well, how do I integrate this? Now, I've had a remote virtual business for the 12 years I've been in business. I always go to my client sites when I need to, but mainly this experience has been natural for me. Yes. Very natural. So I had to learn the integrated space of not letting this work time overcome all my life. So integration to me is figuring out what best serves you for the highest version of yourself in all the things you have to do, and making sure that you're disciplined around showing up in it all in a way where you're caring for yourself.
Yeah. So one of the things that when I'm working with clients, I know how I start to work that process. And so I'm working a lot beginning with who are you? What is your personality? And what are your values? How do you help people start that? Because you can't align to something if you don't know where this line is. So how do you help people do that?
Well, I think to live an integrated life, you have to first understand what's your mission, what's your true vision in life, and work is one area of it, right? But then there's the other things. There's relationship, your spiritual connection, the way you want to take care of your health, the way you want to financially be healthy, like so many things, right? So I think number one is to be clear on the vision of the life you want to have, and kind of work backwards from there on saying, okay, and this is where all these arenas fit in, so that you can design an integrated work life around it.
I think that's the key piece, is this idea of design. I think there's a lot of, I don't know if it's a cultural myth, or I'm not exactly sure what to call it, but there's this idea in the world, let's call it that we don't have as much agency over our lives as we actually do. I think the first time you get to actually exercise that agency, for me, it was quitting a job that I loved that became really toxic. And I was like, oh, wait, I can actually just leave. Like, that was a revelation. And because there's loyalty and connection and community, all of those things. I didn't say it was easy, but the agency that I had to say, there is something different that I want, and I do not have to stay here, was, I think, the first time I experienced that. And counteracting that is deciding, well, what is the life I want to design? And it can seem scary because it's like, oh my gosh, I have all that freedom. And when I think about that and that agency that you bring to people, one of the things that I'm curious about is, do you have people dream and visualize? Do you have people write it all down? Because I think sometimes we're like, oh, I know the life that I want, but actually when we start to put pen to paper, we don't. So I'm just curious what you do with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have an amazing exercise and workbook that folks can download if they're interested. It's called the Strategic Life Planning Workbook. And that mastery, seeking that mastery, number one is always the clarity of where you're going. So the vision exercises we do are two-part. You take an inventory of all that already has been done, because a lot of the times we think it has to be completely different than who you are today. I like to look at it as an evolution moment, right? Like, you take inventory really of all the things that you have done, but that also lit you up. Like, do you want to continue doing all of those things? So there's a bit of this assessment inventory stage first, to then go into, from this place, now that you're clear on the things that light you up, the things that excite you, like what is it that you could do all day long that would get you so pumped? Now from there, create your vision. Because I think it's really important to ground yourself in who you truly are right now, knowing that, yes, there's this next version of you that wants to surface, in order to then come from a place of clear understanding of self, to then put that vision together. And in that workbook, we have several steps to go through. And I actually just launched an SLP accelerator where I guide you through the workbook, because I felt that people would get the workbook and let it sit there.
Right.
They're like, I want something different. But
probably about 80% of the people.
Right. I want something different. And like, how do I, I'll download it and it will be different. No, you got to do the work. So when you ask that question of, do you have them write it down? You're like, these are my vision boards behind me, like I create the energy around me that I want to step into daily. I might not quite be there yet, but I have to be reminded of what it is that I desire daily, visually, for me to then step into it. So there are a lot of different practices on how to get the clarity. And in that workbook, then it's also about, how do you jump into action,
Yeah.
So you can grab that at kareenwalsh.com/links, and SLP workbook is there for anyone watching.
Awesome. So that's kareenwalsh.com/links, right?
Yep.
That's where you just
LINKS.
So
yep.
You can grab that workbook, because I think that would be incredibly valuable. And one of the things that I love what you just said, that it's an evolution moment. Yeah. So I want you to talk a little bit about that fear that comes up when we start to switch from, but here's what I've always done and I'm still good at it, but it's not the thing that I want to do anymore. What does that moment feel like, and how do you work through that?
Okay, so I'm one of the people that like thrive in that moment. So I know I'm an awkward one. I love change.
You're probably why it helps the rest of us get through.
And that's why, because the thing is, if evolution does not have to be abandonment. I think there's certain things that you have done to date. Like those of you watching, I'm sure there are things you have done to date that you love the mastery of and you want to continue with. And so keep that on your list. And then what else do you want to add? Ask the addition question. It doesn't have to be pure abandonment to jump into that, because your skills stay with you. And those skills then can be applied to different career choices, different, arenas you want to go play in. But don't negate the fact that you've built up all this skill set. Now you have to figure out, well, where else can I apply that? And I think that's the difference there in quieting the fear, is that I'm capable. Just repeat after me. I am capable.
I am capable. It's true.
Right? And then ask yourself, what else do I need to learn? What else do I need to have exposure to? What else do I might need to get certified in to now go down this next path? Because that's literally all the steps I've ever taken. I would set the vision goal. I want to be an executive leadership coach because I'm a great servant leader to my team, but I want other people to step up at this level too and like really bring everybody forward. And so I went and would get certified. I was doing it, but then I wanted the certification to become more a master at it. And so anybody has that ability. You just have to decide, are you going to thank you for fear? This is the other thing I would say. Thank you, fear, for showing me what's important. Thank you for showing me that this thing that I think I want, I'm afraid of, but thank you. I have gratitude for fear. Now what are we going to do about it? And step into the doing.
Such
critical.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
It's so hard sometimes, when you're I'm like, oh, I thought you were finished, and the internet kind of goes back and forth. It's the hard thing about online conversations. I think I'm really curious for the people who are watching, and Angel and Heather and Shelby and others. Have you ever done a process like this? Have you ever sat and thought, what do I want to do, and what is the value and the mission that I want to give in the world? I'm kind of curious as that. And I like how you talked about, you take your skills with you. And so a lot of the people are, I'm in a corporate arena. I actually don't want to start my own business, but I don't like this place. When you go through that process of what are my skills, you start to see, oh, this industry or this team actually needs this thing that I have. And you can get a little bit more creative. And again, start that designing process. That is incredibly powerful to bring it. Like for me, so my first career, I was a music teacher. I taught kindergarten through 8th grade music. And you think, well, what are those skills that you bring in the world? There's so much that I look back on my theater and music training that I use every single day. And they are skills. And some of it, I even start to work back into, how can I bring more of that in? Because that's who I am. And I love to sing and I love to do that work. And that's just part of my integration of bringing that together.
Exactly.
Because it brings me more joy in doing my work. And so I think those are things as people are thinking about, well, I don't necessarily want to start my own business, but do you want to level up in your leadership? The more you are who you are and you know who you are, that changes your, what's that word when people want you? Like your marketability. You have something more.
The attraction.
Yeah.
And your authenticity towards it too. And I'd say, and don't be afraid to let go of something you tried on also career-wise, like the certain things, the way you had to show up to fulfill that job. It's still a job. Like you were hired for a purpose. We all have been through this. Hired for a purpose and you fulfilled that purpose. But if it wasn't a fit, then start to question, well, what could it be that would be more of a fit, which would allow you then to step into vision again? I think a lot of people need more training around how to think differently than like shooting all over themselves, as I like 100%. To say.
I say that in a couple of my talks. Stop shooting on yourself.
Yeah. It's so important. It's so important.
Absolutely. And it's so much mindset work. It's so much about how we look and perceive things in the world.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I really wish we could continue this conversation. I'm just looking at the
We could go on
time.
forever, Jen.
I know we could talk forever about this. And so I'm so appreciative of just so many wisdom nuggets that you have given about starting with your center and working out from there. That's so, so powerful. So tell the people how to connect with you, where to find you. While you're talking, I'm going to try to write the link in the comments. So tell people how to find you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to put it in the links after this gets posted too. I'll put it in the comments if it's a struggle at all. But truly, I mean, everything current is KareenWalsh.com/LINKS. You could also use the code on the screen. But I would say most people who want to engage with me as a one-on-one client or in any of my group settings all go through that SLP workbook. And that's why I started to give it away for free, because I was like, if more people have access to that, then their journey starts in a more aligned way. And I share exercises that are in my 2 books in that workbook as well. So my Be a Badass book is all about your personal journey, your self mastery. And then Lead with Value is all about the leadership mastery. Because I find that when you start to master self, you then now want to lead others to go after it. And so it's been this interesting sequence of my own growth, telling personal stories, but also how to put it into action. Both have exercises you can implement. And my hope is that it just impacts your world and helps you accelerate getting to where you want to go. Like that's my whole story is a lot of wasted time and money on the not wrong, but I have lessons learned from everything. But I'm trying to help others not do the same. So that's why I put these tools and wrote the book and the podcast, like all the things. So however I can be of service, that's my mission, to help you get to where you're trying to go and live that integrated life. I mean, it's so worth it these days.
So worth it. Yeah. I'm just going to underline something you said, because I think it's key to my philosophy in helping leaders, is that you can't lead anyone else until you've led yourself first. You have to lead yourself. And so that's why it does actually start with you as the leader. Who you are really matters. And that is how you then become more effective at leading others and helping them start to figure out who they are. Even if you're working in finances, like who they are and how they show up is incredibly important. And so I think I just want to say yes, exclamation point, to that.
I agree.
To that order. Oh, thank you so much for your time. These always go so fast. I really, really appreciate your time and your wisdom. Everybody check Kareen out, connect with her. She is a lovely follow. Always so much value and just a delightful human in the world. And I'm so glad to be connected with you. Next week, we have Ivy Malik coming on, and I'm so excited to interview her, and it will be a lovely Monday Mentor. We are here every week at 1 p.m. Eastern, and giving you great leadership tips to help you be a fully effective leader and help your team grow. So that's what we're doing here. Thanks again, Kareen. I'm so glad for you to be here today, and we will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.